Okay, we are here to talk. Waiting for people to jump in the room. I'm expecting TJ, one of my great moderators, to be out there tonight. He hadn't been available the last couple times I was live, but luckily only had a few MAGAs to deal with. He hadn't been available the last couple times I was live, but luckily only had a few MAGAs to deal with. Wasn't too bad. Waiting for people to get in here. We got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of things going on. We've got Donald Trump having another annual physical this year, and haven't seen anything yet about what is going on there, what the White House is going to say. I'm sure they're going to tell us he did great, that he was going, that he's fit as a fiddle, and 20 years younger than he really is, and all of those things. But that's not the truth. That's not reality. Republicans wouldn't know reality if it bit them in the ass. They're going to lie about it. So you have Donald Trump going to get his physical, and makes you wonder what is really going on, because he went back in April as well. It's his second physical this year. So how bad is his health really? Still waiting for people to jump in. Haven't seen hardly anybody in this room. I wonder if TikTok is just burying me yet again. Getting a few people out there. We are talking news, talking politics. If there's something you want me to cover, go ahead, drop it in the comments. But we've got a lot to discuss. We're in day 10 of this government shutdown, and it doesn't appear to be going anywhere. We're at a stalemate. Republicans aren't willing to fund the government. Democrats aren't willing to budge. And it's a mess. And this is exactly where I figured we would be at this point. And it's a mess. And this is exactly where I figured we would be at this point when Republicans won. At the time, I believe, Republicans couldn't agree with themselves during Trump's first administration to keep the government open. And here we are. Government's closed. And with no end to the shutdown in sight. We've got tons of stuff going on. Still waiting on people to join the room. Only got about 1 or 2 people out there right now. But if there's something you guys want me to talk about, go ahead, drop it in the comments. Oh, there's Rebecca, one of my other moderators. Hey, Rebecca. Getting a couple people out there now. We got a lot going on. Government still shut down. No end to that in sight. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is keeping the House out of session for another week. Still refusing to seat Representative Grijalva. Just won't do it. Says, well, we need the full House there in order to give her a seat. Well, he doesn't. He could do it whenever. He's just choosing not to. Trying to avoid holding a vote on the Epstein files, on that discharge petition. They know it's going to be embarrassing. And they don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to deal with it. And I think this might be one of the things that cost Speaker Johnson his speakership. I think when they come out of the other side on the of the shutdown, if they've had to negotiate with Democrats, I think he may lose his speakership. And when the Epstein files thing blows up in their face, he may also lose his speakership. It is entirely possible. And who they get beyond that is anybody's guess, because it took them 3 weeks to come up with Speaker Johnson. And if they vote him out, nothing gets done in the House of Representatives, because they can conduct no business until they have a speaker. Representatives, because they can conduct no business until they have a speaker. They're in a no-win situation here. They can't win no matter what they do. Evil says Qatar Air Force Base. What's up with that? Well, it's not actually an Air Force base. Apparently, it is going to be, they can do joint training on the F-15s they bought from us. And we've done things like that before. But the weird thing is, because it's Qatar, where, Donald Trump just got that plane from Qatar. And there was always a question of, were there strings attached? And now this comes up. it's enough to make you wonder what's going on. We have other military that do have not, I wouldn't say a presence, like an occupying presence, not like how we have bases in other countries, but they do joint efforts with us to train their troops here at the same Air Force base where this Qatar facility is going to be put. We have Singapore. Singapore has troops there. In New Mexico, I think they have German troops. So, we do this all the time. We do training with other nations, and but the whole thing, because it's Qatar, makes us question it. And even MAGA's losing their mind because Qatar is a Muslim nation, and they don't understand why Donald Trump's doing it. Well, it's in part because of the favor he got with the plane. Whether they want to officially admit it or not, I guarantee you that had something to do with this. That we are now training their military. The whole thing is bizarre. I'm waiting for Donald Trump to come out and say, well, we're actually going to get paid for it and we're making money on it or something like that. Because that's what Donald Trump is all about. It's all about the grift for him and how he can make himself look great. This just doesn't take away from the fact that they can't keep the government open. We have the Epstein files that are being talked about all the time, and Donald Trump wants to get away from that. And he's ruining our reputation on the world stage. And Donald Trump comes out today, and because he's mad that he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, well, what's he going to do? He's going to go back and tariff China again. Rebecca says, ruined, not ruining. Well, you'd probably be right, except for the fact that he's continuing to make things worse. We haven't seen the final outcome of where things are going to be until we get to the end of his term. Island Breezy says, Qatar to build an Air Force facility in Idaho. Yeah, we were talking about that. Apparently, it's going to be a building or two for them to do joint training and for us to train them on how to fly F-15s. We do it with other countries, but because Pete Hegseth is incompetent and was probably drunk, he didn't say it right in his press conference and made it sound like they were putting on like a full base. Rebecca says, it's only October of year one, for goodness sake. Yeah. Yeah, it's October of year one, but there's no way I don't think he makes it through all 4 years. Either he gets removed or the Big Mac catches up to him. Don says, he says we're up to 18 trillion now. If you're talking about the tariffs, yeah, the actual number is like 200 and some billion dollars. But he says 18 trillion because he throws out numbers because he knows his base isn't going to fact check him and he thinks it makes him look good. He says 4,000 killed in Chicago. Yeah, I don't think that number is accurate either. He's just trying to push his narrative to make it so he wants you to believe all these cities are so violent and so unruly that they have to go in and take them over. But I don't think his brain is all there, and I think he's seeing movies or something on TV or old video or something, and he thinks it's real. He's not connecting the dots anymore. And if this was your family member, you'd be considering putting them in an assisted living facility, maybe a memory care unit. He's clearly suffering from a lot of things. He should not be in the position he's in with everything he's got going on. Rebecca says, and 110K gang members in Ohio, apparently. Yeah, that's what he's saying. That's what he's saying, but I don't think that's real either. Don says, until our media pushes back, his base just believes it all. Yeah, for the most part. they're not pushing back enough, and because Fox News doesn't have to be credible, they are on record in court saying they are entertainment, not news. They're going to keep getting lied to. Rebecca says they're showing him the Warriors and telling him it's real life. Could be. Could be. Donald Trump gets his information from somewhere and believes it. Sean says, nobody watches Fox News, bro. There is a section of this country that exclusively watches Fox News. Nobody watches Fox News, bro. There is a section of this country that exclusively watches Fox News. Everybody. Everybody. Because if not, we wouldn't be able to see the same things. I haven't had cable. But there is a section of people in this country that are still able to vote that get their talking points from Fox. Because Fox will say it, and then you see all of them out here on social media repeating it. If nobody was watching Fox News, they'd be out of business. They're making money. Just like CNN is making money. Maybe more are going toward foxnews.com or the Fox News app, but that's the same thing. They're still getting their information from the same source. Fox is still a big player in media. They're still getting their information from the same source. Fox is still a big player in media. They're not good for anybody because, as I said earlier, they said in court documents no one should believe them because they are entertainment, not news. I never said I was watching Fox News. Evil says, did Trump say something about talking to soybeans about China? Like, actually, yeah, he did. He said something about, he was talking, I think about talking to Xi of China and soybeans. And he kept saying something about soybeans and then says, well, I have to talk to him. And the implication of how he phrased it made it sound like, or no, he said, he and I have a lot to talk about. It made it sound like he was talking about soybeans. Sean, I get my news from a combination of sources. Some from TikTok, some from other apps, other websites. I go multiple places looking for information, so I don't get talking points from one place. I look deeper into the story, trying to make sure, before I come out here, that I talk correctly about what's going on. And I don't even trust, there's not one TikTok personality on here that I completely trust to get everything correct. Material, and I will go look for it elsewhere to verify it. Because certain creators, while they do a very good job, they fight to get things out so quickly that sometimes they miss something or they misrepresent something without understanding that they did or meaning to. Same with some people will try to, because, oh man, this sounds so great, I gotta get this story out, I want to make it. Then you find out that it wasn't out on a reputable site and it's not actually true. So I try to look into everything a little bit. Yeah, you know what? I'm tired of arguing with you, Sean. You're gone. You know, it's not about people thinking different. It's simply that you have places like Fox News that are intentionally misleading, and they will even say in court that they are misleading and that they're doing it for information, but they peddle their stuff as news. Evil says we can't trust traditional media anymore. Yeah, we can't. They've all bent a knee in some way, shape, or form. Look what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. Look what happened with Colbert. They got pressure from Donald Trump, and they end up canceling the show. Or, they canceled Colbert's show, suspended Kimmel, but it was canceling the show. Or, they canceled Colbert's show, suspended Kimmel, but it wasn't until it hit them financially that they went, oh fuck, we made a mistake and put Kimmel back on the air. Hey, TJ's out there. Nice to see you, TJ. Rebecca says, fact check Snopes, Reuters, Google, multiple sites and video. Yeah, I do. It's a lot of what I do. I look into deeper, and I've been doing that since well before I ever thought about creating videos for content. I remember in the early 2000s, my mom would get emails. Let me try. You said I'm lagging? Let me try switching off of my Wi-Fi. My mom would get emails. Let me try. You said I'm lagging? Let me try switching off of my Wi-Fi and going straight to cellular. But I remember mom would get emails from her one sister, and it could be some of the most salacious stuff, and she'd believe it automatically. Like, there was one said it was a study out of Johns Hopkins about reusable containers and how dangerous they were. Well, you look into it, study never existed. It was fake, but mom still believed it because of even though I could show her where it was fake, because she heard it from her sister. Well, my sister wouldn't lie to me. No, but your sister was misinformed. And wouldn't budge. Believed it 100%. And I've been fighting with that this whole time, TJ, you're lagging because you're on a plane? Lucky you. It's just John says most media is biased either left or right. Finding reputable sources is nearly impossible. Yeah. I mean, and even creators on here, some of them do better jobs than others, but they're not all great. Like I said, some are just trying to get the information out so quickly that sometimes they latch onto bad stories. And sometimes they misrepresent things based on what was known at the time. And by the time I get to recording on the same story, more is known. And it ends up being a little bit better, like this thing with Hegseth. He had to come out and issue a retraction or a clarification for the Qatar facility that's being built in Idaho, because he made it sound like they were getting an actual base, and they're not. It's going to be a joint training thing, but because he's a dumbass, he said it wrong. Sue says her sister is the same way, and because of Fox, idolizes Pete Hegseth. Oh, I'm sorry. They rail against DEI hires, but Pete Hegseth was the DUI hire. I mean, they couldn't have picked a worse candidate to be Secretary of Defense, and I refuse to call him the Secretary of War. Rebecca asks, Sue, is it muscles? Is it his tattoos, or his alcoholism? Yeah, it makes you wonder. B. Lang says, sometimes not finding a reputable source, it's finding sources that meet your agenda. Be open-minded. Usually, though, for me, they're one and the same. I don't care which way the article leans. I want facts. I want truth. And if you're going to come out like Fox News does a lot and say, hey, wait a minute, and say in court that you don't have to trust us, we're entertainment, not news, and they can be proven wrong time and time and time again, and shown how they're falsely editing clips to prove a point, etc., you're less likely to trust them. But if the article comes out with a left-leaning bias, but still gives good facts, that's all I care about. I don't care about which way they're presenting it. I care about getting facts and information. Lori says, hey, Eric, great job on the Boomer podcast today. Thank you. Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I guest star routinely over on the Rational Boomer podcast, and today I was the guest over there. Mike and I sat down for about an hour and a half, and we talked about a lot of things, and there's a lot of things you can't get done in just the 3 to 5 minute videos you make here on TikTok. Rebecca says, B-Lang says, I even have to fact check sources I think are reputable, just in case. Yeah. You do. You have to look into it a little deeper. And sometimes I just even look up, to make sure I got the correct... if they say, because of this law or this statute, that it looks like they can or can't do this. I go looking deeper to see if it actually says it or anything else. Lori says, they will always stop and listen to you guys. Yeah, I appreciate that. TJ says they edited the Miller clip. Are you talking about when Stephen Miller kind of glitched and said, that Donald Trump has Pulte power, basically unlimited power to be a king? And he realized that, oh shit, I shouldn't have said that? Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Fox News edited that. I haven't seen their edit of it, though. Rebecca says she doesn't want to be the one that spreads the BS. It doesn't help us. No, it doesn't. And we can be just as guilty, on the left side of things as the right of spreading misinformation. That's why I try to, ground people a little bit. Like with this case out of New York where they're relooking at Kamala Harris and some of the districts not getting any votes. It doesn't matter what they prove. I mean, it does matter that we can prevent it from happening again. But even if they prove he cheated, it's not going to change the outcome of the election. It's over. It's done. It's been certified. There's no mechanism to put Kamala Harris back in office. All we have to do now is get through to the midterms, get the Democrats back in control of at least one chamber of Congress to stall out Donald Trump for the last half, and then get to 28 and put a Democrat back in office. And I don't think the Republicans have a chance at winning in 28, short of Donald Trump choking on a Big Mac this year sometime, J.D. Vance stepping up and becoming a very reasonable president, reversing everything Donald Trump did, and pretty much becoming a Democrat in philosophy but Republican in name. And I don't see that happening. Rebecca says, it is important. We can make fun of JD for his couch BS, but it isn't real. Yeah, remembering that the couch thing is still just a joke from our side is important. Now, their side would take it and run with it and believe every bit of it. I mean, they still believe some of the worst things about Joe Biden that were proven demonstrably false more times than I can count. But they don't care about that. It fits their narrative. We can joke about it, but as long as we're not trying to pass it off as truth, that's a big difference. Will says the shutdown is now a campaign for Republicans. Yeah, you mean they're trying to campaign against Democrats for it, for 26, for the midterms? They're going to try, and they're going to fail. Will says they care nothing about Americans. They don't. Republicans do not care about Americans. They don't care about the military. If they did, Mike Johnson would have the House of Representatives there in session. They'd be voting on a pay package for the military to make sure they get paid during the shutdown. And instead he says, nah, not my problem. User says it's going to be a lot of collateral damage along the way. Yeah. There's going to be collateral damage. And it's going to take more than probably a 4-year term for one president to get done. And we have to make sure we're keeping that narrative going after Democrats are back in control that it's going to take time and it's going to take money to fix all this damage, because if we don't, what'll probably happen is after 2 years, Republicans might try to find a way to get one chamber of Congress back. Maybe they try to take back the presidency in 32 with a decent fight, and if we're not careful, it could happen again and undo all the progress we've made. Assimilated says, the Schumer shutdown is the garbage they spew. Yeah, but no one's buying it. Like Evil says, no one's buying it. It's the Democrats' fault. Will says, airport commercials blaming Democrats for the shutdown. Yeah, I heard they're doing that now, which is a violation of the Hatch Act, which of course nothing will happen until Democrats are in power. Once again, just Donald Trump is going to get away with it. But those are things that, it's another one of those norms that had never been crossed. But now, Donald Trump walks over them on a daily basis. The people around him walk over it on a daily basis, and they don't care. TJ invited a lot of people. Thank you, TJ. Will says Trump lives in a fantasy. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's delusional at this point. He lives in a fantasy world of his own creation. Aunt Molly says the Dems said they would vote for a military pay package. I'm sure they would. Problem is they can't vote for it if the House isn't in session. They just can't. Evil says get the money from the 1%. Yeah, they should pay their own. They should pay their own way. You know how much we could get done if we were still taxing them like we did in the 50s and 60s at 90% or better? We could fund food stamps. We could fund universal health care. We could fund all of these things. And most Americans wouldn't see any increase in their taxes. Hell, you could probably give most middle class and lower a tax break, and the government deficit would be going away, if not gone. Will says, doesn't matter. Heritage Foundation is using the shutdown to cancel the government. Problem is, courts are telling Donald Trump, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. He keeps getting told no. And ultimately, a lot of this is going to get reversed. Maybe the Supreme Court sides with Donald Trump. But when the Democrats are in power, we're just going to have to rebuild the structures back up that he tore away. Evil says MTG is a wild card in all of this too. Not really. No, she's not really a wild card. She's just trying to set herself up for a bigger role in statewide politics in Georgia, whether that's a governor run, whether that is, a run for Senate, something like that. And she knows she's got to get away from the far right extreme bullshit. So she's trying to move more toward the center and trying to be more realistic. She also got snubbed by Trump and other Republicans when she did want to run for senator in Georgia. They pretty much told her, no, you wouldn't win. So it's kind of, she's out for herself, and that's about it. User said they're going to do something on the next No King's Day, October 16th. They might try. Rebecca says, not for nothing, but she is speaking like a human right now to keep her seat. Yeah. Farmer JD says, as a God-fearing... What does that have to do with anything we're talking about? Molly said, could fund college like we did before Reagan. Yeah, exactly. Will says, MTG is DOA in Georgia. Can't compete. Yeah. I don't think she can compete in Georgia. I think the Georgia Senate race stays blue. And there might even be a chance we pick up the governor's seat in Georgia. It's not Kemp. Well, who was that lieutenant governor that's now running as a Democrat? Jeff Duncan. Jeff Duncan. Yeah. He may have a chance. Duncan may have a chance of winning as a Democrat in Georgia. Rebecca says that's why she's talking like a human. Yeah, she's trying to get herself back toward the middle. About being more favorable in statewide races. Will says John Ossoff is a rock star. Yeah, his name actually came up by somebody, a few people, talking about a potential 28 run for president, and he may make he could make a good candidate, and I think he could. Will says, yeah, he is still a culture conservative, though, anti-abortion, etc. Are you talking about Duncan? I mean, still, but getting the power away from, even if it is a Democrat and starts blocking some of the far-right BS out of Republicans in the state legislature, that's at least got to be some kind of a win for you in Georgia. Rebecca says she's been talking about healthcare not being affordable, talking about MTG. Yeah, that's the thing. She has been. Now, she'll turn it and say, well, we don't necessarily have to fix Obamacare. We shouldn't fix their failed program. But we got to do something because it's unaffordable, and this is better than nothing. She's trying to walk that tightrope and sound almost reasonable. It's kind of scary. Will says, like MTG cares, she lies. Yeah, well, in the one press release I saw from her about it, she was talking about her own kids and about how they couldn't afford their insurance. So maybe she does care a little bit, only because it affects her personally. Rebecca says she called it ACA. Yeah, that's the thing. They're calling it the ACA when they want to when they want to protect it. When they want to push against it, they'll call it Obamacare. Will says, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. 100%. And these Republicans have continually showed us who they are. TJ says, reality is hitting her. Yep. Yeah. That is part of it. Will says, by the way, frack the Purple Revolution. Yeah, I don't trust them one bit. Don't trust them one bit. If they'd really learned, they would have been over. They would have been at least independent. They would have become Democrat. This whole thing is a thing. They're just trying to get out of the mess they've created at this point. And once we get out of that mess, they'll turn back on us. They'll go right back to voting Republican no matter who. They really haven't learned. They just know this is untenable. Let's fix this. Quantum says, here's what I'm afraid of. There will be MAGAs running as Dems and reverting to MAGAs once in. That's why we just got to be more careful about who we run and we got to be looking into it. I know a lot of people say vote blue no matter who. To me, that's conditional. You can't just say I'm voting blue no matter who. Because you're right. If they were hardcore MAGA the whole way and now suddenly they're running on a Democratic ticket, they're probably going to revert. And hopefully they get primaried out. The really crazy ones, though, are going to be beaten in primaries. They're not going to be able to get the Democratic nomination unless they're running in places where there typically isn't a Democrat. Aunt Molly says, that's my concern, read Jeff Duncan. Problem with Jeff Duncan and reverting is they threw him out of the Republican Party. I don't think he reverts. He may do things that are way more conservative than liberals would like, but I think he stays at least a Democrat. He doesn't flip parties again because they kicked him out. They told him, we don't want you or your type here, so why would he go back? And the reason they threw him out is because he stood up to Trump. Rebecca says, hopefully those wolves in sheep's clothing will be flushed out. Yeah, I think the primary season will take care of a lot of that. We just got to be careful. If we see people that look like they're MAGA, or if we find out with some investigating that they're MAGA, we need to put them on blast. You know, make sure the message gets out there that they are MAGA or were MAGA, and hold their feet to the fire. They're not going to be able to just change party affiliation necessarily and get away from the stench that is Donald Trump. Rebecca says that's our job. Yeah, it is. One of the things I try to do is I call out both sides when there's bullshit. I mean, you guys have heard me call out Nancy Pelosi repeatedly. I think I just did it on the Rational Boomer podcast today. You know, for not getting the hell out of the way. Will says, who loves the Portland frog, the true symbol of the resistance? I don't know what the Portland frog is, but I like frogs. Maguchi says, do you think Mike Sherrill and Spanberger will win their races? Not sure. I'm not sure on those specific races. Or Mickey Sherrill and Spanberger. Still no idea on those specific races. I try to keep up, but there are a lot of races around the country. It is hard to keep up on all of them. I'm doing the best I can, just keeping track of the national stuff and the stuff here in Iowa. I'm pulling for Iowa to flip purple at least. Will says the guy in the frog costume. I didn't know anything about a guy in a frog costume. I knew there was a guy in a chicken suit. I might have to look into that. Rebecca says, yes, the Portland inflatable frog is amazing. Like I said, I like frogs, so I'll have to look into that. But I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't seen any videos of that yet. So yeah, we got a lot going on. Donald Trump went to Walter Reed today. Haven't seen what they've put out as an official statement on his health, but I guarantee you it's going to be something dumb like, fit as a 40-year-old or some bullshit. And, we know we won't believe that. Will says no King's Day is bothering Trump. Yeah. I'm sure it is. Because he wants more than anything to be a king. He likes that total authority that kings have. Molly says the frog was the one that got maced. Oh, they maced the guy in the frog suit? That's disappointing. Cassandra said there's a whole fleet of inflatables now. Best thing all year. Yeah, that just shows how absurd everything is. They're calling it an insurrection, and they're wanting to call out the National Guard for protesters in inflatable costumes. It's ridiculous. Rebecca says, how about the priest shot in the head from ice from a roof with a rubber bullet? Hadn't heard that one out today or at all, but not surprised. These people are poorly trained. Some of them are barely qualified, and they're trigger happy. Hey, Liam. Will says Trump crashed the market today. 100% tariffs on China. Yeah, I was going to do a TikTok on that. I think I'm going to do one on it for tomorrow. The thing is, he puts these tariffs back on China. Another 100% on China. I thought he had a trade deal with China. I thought they came to terms. Is that gone now? Did the deal never materialize? Was it never signed? Or is he welching on it? Either way he tries to spin this, it makes him look bad. It makes him look like a dumb fuck. TJ says there was never a deal. Yeah. Yeah. There was probably never a deal. He's weak as hell. Evil says, imagine where we'd be if farmers were worried about owning their farms as they are about owning the libs. Yeah. And I'm in a farming state. And I thought for sure they would have remembered what it was like under Donald Trump the first time. Liam says, I'm currently at work in Portland. The smoke from all the fires is burning my eyes. Yeah. I know you're joking, Liam, but geez, some people will believe you. Aunt Molly says, now saying he's not going to meet with Xi. Yeah. Now he says he's not going to meet with him. And it's ridiculous. Donald Trump claims to have had a deal, claims to have a deal on TikTok, and doesn't have anything. Now he might have to bail out the farmers. And it's going to take more than, as Evil puts out, more than a one-time payment. Problem is, oh, there's Jay. Problem is, though, he does one bailout. It doesn't fix the fact that there's no guarantee that China buys any soybeans next year either. Now, they may be able to find contracts for it next year and figure out something else out. But yeah, he doesn't have the authorization. That would need Congress. Congress would have to pass something. And they need to authorize a bailout. And the emergency fund he was going to use for the bailout doesn't have the funds in it. And to take any money from these tariffs that he claims to have and use it like he thinks he's going to, well, there's not $18 trillion in there. There's like 200 and some billion. So depending on how much of a bailout he gives farmers, there's not going to be much left. And then he wants to give every U.S. citizen a $1,000 to $2,000 payment. And the money's not there from the tariffs either. Between both, we'd be farther in the hole than what the tariffs have brought in. And that's before the Supreme Court will probably rule that the tariffs are illegal and that the money has to be returned. The whole thing's ridiculous. Will says, I love J.B. Pritzker's video of In the Chicago War Zone. Yeah. Except now there are people on the right who would believe it. They would actually think it's true. Evil says, isn't China all buddy-buddy with Argentina now? Why would they come back? They wouldn't. They wouldn't come back. They have no reason to. And even though now they're buying their soybeans from Argentina, we sent Argentina a bunch of money. Liam says, I kind of wish the Nobel Peace Prize went to Obama again. We could cheer Norway for the coronary. Yeah. Exactly. Donald Trump is losing his mind. And he'll probably forsake Gaza and Israel now over it. And he may turn his back on the Ukraine as well because he didn't get his Peace Prize. He's a petulant child. He's like a toddler or maybe a young child learning to play board games and isn't winning and then flips the board. Will says, and Trump wants to tax homeowners. Yeah, great. That means he's going to be taxing me more. Good luck with that. Molly says, just like Doge, farther in the hole. Yep. And with all these layoffs and these firings that he's doing because of the government shutdown, well, how many of those people are going to have to be brought back at higher pay just because? MJ says, did I hear Kristi Noem videos at airports and TSA blaming Democrats for the shutdown? Yes. And that is a violation of the Hatch Act. Anytime one of them comes out and says it's the Democrats' fault when they're an employee, I believe is a violation of the Hatch Act. Now, Donald Trump may be different because he's elected, not appointed or an employee. But they also have certain members that were furloughed of the government. Their out of office message was changed to a message blaming the Democrats for the shutdown. They are trying desperately to spin the narrative because they're getting the heat for it and they don't like it. They don't want to be held accountable for this government shutdown. And they could do multiple things to fund the government. They could carve out the funding bill from the filibuster. They could. They won't, because they know they'll eventually be in the minority in the Senate and they want to use it to block Democrats. So they're not going to touch the filibuster. They could come to the table with Democrats. But they're not, because they think Donald Trump would veto anything. The whole thing's ridiculous at this point. MJ says, do you think Mamdani will win the New York election for mayor? Probably. He's a Democratic candidate. It's New York City. More than likely he's going to win. And I think his win sends a message to the rest of the Democrats to start changing your style and go for more for the people mentalities. I've been saying for a long time, to combat all of the damage that Donald Trump has put us in, we need somebody to run on an FDR style platform. Something like a perfect deal or a fair deal. And talking about just getting back to funding the middle class. Making it so you can live and afford to live on one job. Liam asks, are Mountain Home, Idaho area white supremos losing their shit? Yeah, they are. They are. They're losing their minds because people from a Muslim country are coming over to train in the United States on one of their Air Force bases. Nice one, Will. Or nice one, Jay. Will says, and no goddamn culture wars. Exactly. I think this push of the big culture war shift is going to be one of the last ones for a little while. Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, this will be the last culture war thing. Will be one of the last times that they have culture wars going here in the, for at least a little bit. We're going to have to get back to regular issues. MJ asks, if Mamdani wins, should Democrats look to his campaign as a blueprint for 26 and 28? Not necessarily. Because he's a Democrat in New York City. If he was a Democrat and he was running in a hard conservative red state, like say he ran that platform and won the governorship of Texas, that'd be one thing where you didn't see it coming. Unfortunately, New York is kind of like red states in some cases. I think the Democrat wins no matter what, as long as they have liberal-leaning policies and they're not a conservative. Will says Bad Bunny freaked him out. Yeah, did you hear Turning Point USA is wanting to do their own version of a halftime show featuring American acts, and they're going to play it on their website during the same time frame as the halftime show of the Super Bowl. Well, the Puppy Bowl would be better. I mean, I prefer all things dog and puppy, and I like football. But I think I'd prefer the Puppy Bowl over almost anybody that would perform at halftime. Just saying, it's puppy. But MJ says, you heard Creed was a contender. Maybe. I've also heard Lee Greenwood and Kid Rock. I mean, nobody under a certain age knows who either of those are, unless you're in far-right conservative circles. Evil says, I wish we could get the working right to realize this is upper versus lower and not left versus right. Yeah. Something I keep seeing pop up here on TikTok is a soundbite from an older song. Some of you may know it, by the group Alabama and Song of the South. And that is, Daddy was a veteran, a Southern Democrat. Wish you could get a rich man to vote like that. At one time, Southerners and poor people were Democrats. That was just a thing. Democrats need to do a better job of getting their message back to the working class, that's who they're for. Like I said, running on an FDR-style platform and making it something akin to the New Deal. Rebecca says, I love that they think Bad Bunny is not American. She'll be watching the Puppy Bowl regardless. Yeah. They don't know, right? They are woefully uninformed. In some cases, it's not their fault because they were never taught. We know not all Southern states and not all Southern people are this way, but typically Southern states are performing worse than most states in education. They don't get the best education. They don't get told and taught everything. So that's part of it. But they're also like the dumb kid in your high school class who couldn't understand why they were getting D's and thought they were a genius. And then they get around in a circle of friends who are just as dumb as they are, and they all think they're geniuses. Liam says, Kid who? Yeah. When was the last time Kid Rock was culturally relevant? I'm thinking early 2000s. Early 2000s? TJ says never. I think he was kind of culturally relevant in the early 2000s, or at least he was kind of popular, in part because of his connection to the WWE and The Undertaker. That boosted him up into, at least for a little while, more of a mainstream status. Do Not Go Gently says, remember when Texas wanted to secede from the U.S.? Was that in the 70s or the 80s? They have been talking about that for a long time. For a long time. They bring it up every now and then when there's an I think it's almost every time there's a Democrat in the White House. When things aren't going their way. They talk about leaving again. I'd like to see them try it. They were just talking about it last year under Joe Biden. In part because of Joe Biden wanting to told them no, that you couldn't put that barricade up in the Rio Grande, and you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that. They were talking about seceding, and I give it like a year or two until their economy completely collapses and they'd be begging to come back. TJ says they should merge with Mexico. They wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. They don't like any... The people in power in Texas don't like the people of Mexico. Jay says, I call Kid Rock the brother from another sister. Ooh. I mean, maybe. Maybe. He only had a couple of years where he was maybe really good. as far as having some success. And then you kind of forgot about him. Biker D says, don't ruin Mexico. Yeah. Yeah, we don't want to ruin them by giving them Texas. Evil says, Texas keeps electing Grandpa Munster. I'm not holding my breath on Texas doing anything positive. Well, there is a chance that Grandpa Munster gets voted out. Isn't he running this time? Or is it their other senator that is up this time? Because the one guy is what's his name? I can't think of it. He's out fundraising like everybody on the Democratic side, and he's just massively fundraising right now. But I don't remember if he's running up against Ted Cruz or if he's running up against their other senator whose name I can't think of, because he stays in the background, unlike Ted Cruz, and has to eat up all the headlines. MJ says, has Trump reacted to Marjorie Taylor Greene's recent comments about health insurance? Not really. Other than his comments in his cabinet meeting saying he was going to lower prescriptions by 500%. TJ says, John Corbin. Yeah. And he might be running against, like Will says, against Ken Paxton. Yeah. I mean, I can't think of who the Democrat is running, though. The one is just blowing the fundraising out of the water. Starts with a T. But he's doing really, really well. And he could easily unseat John Cornyn. I mean, maybe not easily, but it's possible. Tell Rico. There we go. Thanks, Bluebird. Will says Ken Paxton will win the primary. Yeah, good for him. Good for Ken Paxton. Let him win the Republican primary. That just makes it that much easier for the Democrats to have a pickup seat. Liam says Donnie and his medicines. Yeah. He can't say pharmaceuticals, so he had to stick to medicines. He didn't want to get embarrassed like he did trying to pronounce acetaminophen. But he comes out and he's worried about pronouncing pharmaceuticals and getting it wrong, so he calls them medicines. And then he still says something dumb like we're going to lower drug prices by 500%. Well, if that's the case, that $10 script, when I go to get it filled, you're going to give me $40 every time I get it filled. That's never going to happen. You're just dumb. And if, as I said on the podcast, if that is how he understands percentages to work, and that is what he really thinks is going on, and how he can up and down prices like that, it's no wonder he went bankrupt as many times as he did. The guy's a moron. Rebecca says his math never maths. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he said anywhere from 100 to over 1,500% that he's going to lower drug prices. From 100 to over 1,500. And they believe it. Sue says, problem is MAGA clings to that. They do. They think in part because he's the president that he's got some secret knowledge that they don't have, that he's going to somehow make it happen. Do Not Go Gently says, how do you bankrupt a casino? Better question. How do you bankrupt a casino twice? Because I'm pretty sure he bankrupted 2 casinos. And one of the ways he did it, he didn't listen to his experts, and he overbuilt. He built it too big. And there's the puzzle game. Will says, he stated Republicans are the party of healthcare. Yeah, he says shit. It doesn't mean it's true. Rebecca says, please, I have $1,000 copay on my prescriptions. Yeah, you should have been here the other night when we were discussing universal health care and how beneficial that would have been for Americans and what that would look like. We were on it for like 25 minutes. MJ says, so when that Arizona congresswoman is eventually sworn in and gives signature 218, what happens then? So what'll happen is a discharge petition is basically they're going around the speaker. Normally the Speaker of the House is the one who can decide what gets a vote and what doesn't. Discharge petition says, fuck you, Mr. Speaker. You might say no, but we want this vote. And there's a couple ways this plays out. They pull it up for a vote, and it narrowly passes with the 218 that signed off to call for the vote. It goes to the Senate, and then the Senate, we have the same problem in the Senate where they have to fight like hell to get it up for a vote and everything else. Also, the other thing Mike and I discussed on the Rational Boomer podcast today is what happens. Now, Eric Swalwell has been saying there's a bombshell coming out with regards to the Epstein files. And he said, well, what if the bombshell that's coming out is that like 100 Republicans vote to release the Epstein files? What happens then? Well, I think what happens then is Mike Johnson's in trouble. I think if it passes by more than the 218, 219, something like that, I think they start calling for him to be out as Speaker. But Republicans don't want to be on the record. If they vote in favor of releasing the files, Trump is going to be pissed because he's probably in the files. And if they say, no, we're not releasing the files, their base is going to be pissed because they believe it's nothing but Democrats in the files. Republicans can't win this, but it gets voted on. It still would have to pass the Senate. Assuming it passes the Senate, Donald Trump will not sign it. And unless they pass it with a veto-proof majority, it would still have to go back, get re-voted on in both chambers, and they would need 2/3 of both chambers to pass it around Donald Trump. MJ says, sorry for heaps of questions. I'm from Australia and curious. No worries, that's what we're here for. That's what I'm doing this for, is to answer people's questions. Explain things as best I can and try to have people come out feeling a little bit better about what's going on. Evil says, with the tariffs he put on countries manufacturing pharmaceuticals outside of the U.S., it's never going to happen. Exactly. Will says, even if Trump is on the list, then what? Well, then Republicans are going to have a lot to answer for, and that's what they're scared of. They don't want to know, or they don't want to have it look like they're covering for him. But at the same time, they're trying to cover for him. They're between a rock and a hard place. Sue says, probably, oh, he is in those files. I mean, I agree. I say probably just because I don't 100% know. Based on how he's acting, based on what they're doing, I'm like 99% certain he is in the files. It's just one of those things I say because I don't know for an absolute fact he is there. Jay says he is in the files. It's probably overwhelmingly him with some of his creepy rich buddies. Very well could be. Me says he didn't get shot and he is in the files. Yeah. I mean, that whole thing with his attempted assassination is ridiculous. If it wasn't for some of the weird things that happened around it, we wouldn't be asking. But like, as he's fighting to get up, you see from the one angle, you actually get to see where the Secret Service almost motions for the press to come in to get their photo. If they were actively trying to protect him from what was a shooting situation, don't you think they would have kept the press back? You wouldn't have gotten people closer to him? The whole thing's bizarre. Do not go gently says they are protecting some very powerful people in the files, also blackmailing people. Yeah, they are. Will says they are already covering for Trump. Yeah, they are. They're covering for powerful people. They're covering for donors. They're covering for high-profile Republicans. That's why they don't want to be on record of voting in favor of releasing the files. Evil says MAGA will do their mental gymnastics to excuse Trump being a PDF file. Yeah. C's out there says, hey, Eric, I see. Jay says, no, I said he is the files. No, I don't think he's entirely the only one in the files. There's way more people than that in there. But I guarantee you there's enough in there to that's very incriminating for Donald Trump. And something is going to come up that is going to be something that they cannot get away from. Riddle Me This says, let's be honest. Trump isn't the most powerful in that file. More than likely. Especially considering at the time, he was just a rich billionaire investing in real estate. At the time Epstein was doing all of this stuff, he wasn't politically motivated at all. MJ says, but independents and swing voters will turn unless Democrats trip over themselves again. Yeah. Oh yeah, they'll turn on the Republicans for protecting anybody in the files. Republicans have made their bed with this issue. Donald Trump found something he knew he could resonate with his base on, and he thought he could do what he always does, is say one thing and distract away from it, and he can get away from all of it and bury it, and then he fucked himself over. Amali says, yes, he was. He ran for president as a Democrat. Yeah, but he didn't have any success. He didn't really have any success running as a Democrat. He's tried a couple times, but he didn't go anywhere. He was kind of in politics, but he was more known for being just a billionaire at that point, at the time of Epstein, when all that stuff was going down. Evil says, Trump gave the excuse it was South Beach in the 90s. It was a different time or whatever. Yeah. Do Not Go Gently says, don't several people have the files? I would think it would be leaked by now. They've got parts of it. They've got parts of the files. And bits and pieces are coming out. That's how come we know Elon Musk was listed in there. Steve Bannon. Was it Peter Thiel as well? I think. Nigel says he's a total narcissist. So sad. Our country is going to hell because of a narcissist Nepo baby. Yeah. Yeah, he's a one hell of a narcissist. He thinks he's way smarter than he is. He has failed upwards his entire life. And pretty soon it's going to all come crashing down around him. Anna Marie says he's got control of the DOJ. He'll pardon himself. That depends. He might be able to pardon himself for federal crimes. Pardons don't apply to state. And it also doesn't apply to the court of public opinion. And the simple fact is, if this comes out that he was in the files and he did all these things, and when the evidence is out there, Republicans are going to take a beating with their constituents, and they're going to have to answer for covering for him. And when all of the evidence is out there, it's going to be a bad day for Donald Trump, whether he gets pardoned or not. Nigel says he was all over the flight logs and numerous girls have come out about him. Yeah, they have. And if we just believe the victims, we wouldn't need all this bullshit. But unfortunately, too many times they don't want to believe the victims, and they try to spin it off that it somehow wasn't their fault. Me says he is and always was a con man. Oh yeah, he's been failing upwards his whole life. Evil says Elon was a name too. Yes, he was. Elon has been listed as being somewhere in there. MJ says it's why Marjorie is speaking up so she can deflect blame come midterms. Maybe. Nigel says you're a breath of fresh air, 100%. Well, thank you. That's what I'm trying for. I look at things factually. I look at what's really going on, and try to just, cut through the noise and the clatter and get away from all of the bullshit. Will says maybe the stress will end this. Entirely possible. It could give him an aneurysm or a heart attack or something. Anna Marie says, do you not think his name has been destroyed from the files by now? No. Because right now, until the evidence comes out, it's speculation. Sure, we're like 95% sure he's there and that he's done things. But as I talked about on the podcast with Mike today, if a picture comes out with him having 2 underage girls topless sitting on his lap, like there are supposedly claims of existing, he can't spin away from it. And that's hard proof. And that'll prove exactly that he's in the files. And that is way more damning publicly than like being 95% sure. It'll change things in the court of public opinion. Even some of his most ardent supporters will have to look at it twice and go, oh, maybe not. MJ says he won't pardon Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, or Mike Johnson if they failed to stop or release the files. Exactly. Exactly. He probably won't pardon them anyway unless he has something to gain from it. He is all about getting something out of everything he does, and that's how he looks at it. He's transactional. So if he doesn't think he gets something out of pardoning Patel and Bondi, Mike Johnson, or whoever, he's not going to do it. Rebecca says, not believing the victims makes me physically sick. They were children. Well, but it's not just these victims. It's the victims in general from all kinds of those things. How many times has a woman come forward saying that somebody has done something, and the first question is, well, what were you wearing? What did you do to lead him on? Are you sure you got the right guy? Those kind of questions. Unfortunately, there's too large of a percentage of this country who doesn't first believe the victim. Riddle Me This says he's mad at Bondi over lots of stuff. Oh, he is. Mostly about not getting actual convictions against his political enemies. He thinks that he should just be able to say they're guilty and a judge would agree with him, and they don't need evidence. They don't need due process. It's, he just wants them thrown in jail so he doesn't have to deal with them anymore. Evol says, I love when you're on the Rational Boomer podcast. Best podcast to listen to on my way to work. Yeah, like I've said a couple times on this live, I was a guest on the Rational Boomer podcast today. I encourage you to check it out wherever you get your podcasts. Whether that is YouTube, Spotify, or any place else where you can get podcasts. Nigel says, moving Maxwell to a low-security prison so she does not speak is mind-blowing. And it still might backfire because Supreme Court declined to take up her appeal. Liam says, Diaper Don is way past his freshness date. Expiry on the way. That's what a lot of people are thinking. I don't want to put a time frame on it, but I think his time as being in politics is probably centered around the midterms at the latest. I'm thinking, like I said on the Rational Boomer podcast, if he lives that long, and if Republicans lose big in the midterms, they may turn on him and kick him out of office, trying to rebrand around J.D. Vance for the last 2 years, trying to make it so that they have an actual chance that that they have a chance in 28. Jay says it's going to be unsafe to wear MAGA merch when this is all over. Yeah, you're gonna find it in the back of closets like you do right now with white hoods. Nigel says he's building a military facility for Qatar. What the heck is that about? We've talked about it several times on this live, but effectively, Qatar and the United States now have an agreement. There's going to be a facility built. Not sure who's paying for it. On was it Mountain Home Air Force Base in Idaho, and we are going to be training Qatari pilots to do to fly F-15s. We've sold them a bunch of F-15s, and they are going to be getting trained on how to fly them, I guess. And it's not the first time we've trained other military personnel on U.S. soil. Evil says, would love to see Rational Boomer on one of your lives. Well, he popped up as somebody I could invite, so I sent him an invite, but haven't seen him yet. He's popped in a couple times. Rebecca says there were 1,000 FBI agents tasked with redacting. Yeah. MJ said, I heard there is a TikTok creator that claims he has proof Mike Johnson on Grindr and given the evidence to a media outlet. Well, not surprised, but if that proof is out there, it's going to get out, and Mike Johnson's going to be embarrassed. Liam says, Bondi makes me very sick. Yep, me too. Will says, it's fun. I was on yesterday. Yeah, you were on yesterday. I was on today. And for anybody who might want to be a guest over on the Rational Boomer, it is very easy. Send Mike an email. Tell him when you're available. And it's a Zoom call. You sit and have a conversation. And you don't even realize you're recording the podcast until it's over and he does his outro saying, we'll see you tomorrow. Riddle me this, an article I read today, T was complaining about Bondi including her large ring. Yeah, I saw that. Biker D said sooner the better. I'm guessing that's on when Donald Trump is out of politics. Yeah, I think if it's any sooner than midterms, it is going to be either he does something absolutely egregious where Republicans don't have a choice, or the Big Mac gets him. MJ says, I'm sure it was a chilled podcast always. Love your work, Will. Oh, talking about Will, yeah. Oh, Will, perfectly calm. He never got fired up. Didn't swear once. Calm, even tone. 100%. Liam says, you refer to the fact that you think Diaper Don's seen his last Christmas. That is entirely possible. I'm just looking at when Republicans may turn on him. I'm not a health expert, so I don't want to guess on what his time frame would be, but he's not looking healthy. Nigel says, I hope you're right, because I think he's so corrupt he's going to corrupt the midterms. Problem is, midterms are state-run. They are 100% run by the states. And he's trying, but he's failing. And I just don't think he's going to be able to do anything there. Ruby, this says to Jay, apparently she cut his hand with the ring. What were they doing? I don't want to guess. I don't want to guess because it's Donald Trump. It's a younger woman. Who knows? Will says, never built them a base. Yeah. We've never built them a base, and we're not building them a base this time. It sounds like because he's a DUI hire, Pete Hegseth misspoke. And we're not building them a base. I think we might be building them, or I don't know who is paying for it, but there may be like a hangar and a building being built. It's still going to be on a U.S. base, and I think we still have control over everything. It's just we're adding room so we can train them there, I think. Nigel says, I love your talking on this whole situation because you're factual without being emotional. Well, that's the thing. I try to be factual without being emotional because it's so easy to get lost up in the emotion of all of it. And you start thinking worst case scenario. And you start getting freaked out. And that's what they want. They want us paranoid. They want us freaked out that all hope is lost and that they're going to get their way no matter what, etc., etc., because then they get their way no matter what. So I try to keep it calm and cool. Rebecca says that he apparently got a clean bill of health. Yeah, he's, I don't believe he got a clean bill of health. We know he doesn't have a clean bill of health because they've admitted the vein problem, that they've admitted he's got the problem with his hands bruising because of vigorous handshaking, which nobody believes. But also, as I talked about over on the Boomer podcast today, they probably can't say a whole lot because of HIPAA. So we may never know fully what's there. Will says he's Puerto Rican. They're always calm. Will, I like your stuff. You're not always calm. MJ, it's the sliding doors moment. If Merrick Garland didn't indict Trump, would he have run for a second term? Maybe not. Maybe not. Here's a better one for you. If Mitch McConnell had done his job and actually voted for conviction of Donald Trump in his second impeachment, he'd be ineligible. And Donald Trump wouldn't have been able to run at all. But he said no, it's a criminal matter. And said Merrick Garland, basically said the Attorney General can handle it, they can look into it. And Merrick Garland gets a hold of it and says, no, it's a political matter. The political side needs to deal with it. And he only indicted Trump after appointing Jack Smith because he faced public backlash. If he would have appointed a special counsel, say, midway through 21, Donald Trump's convictions would have already been upheld. He'd already be in prison and we wouldn't be here. We have Merrick Garland and we have Mitch McConnell to blame for us being in the position we are in now. Liam says Eric's very smooth. Well, thank you. Nigel says thank you for keeping it calm and clear because it is freaking a lot of us out and they appreciate it. I'm just here. That's just what I'm trying to do because, it's one of the ways I can help the situation. I can give you my analysis. It's also one of the reasons I picked the name Analytical Iowan, because I look at things from more of an analytical, non-emotional approach. Rebecca says, me either, but he had a doctor appointment and there was a letter saying he was in perfect health. Was it signed by Dr. Ronnie Jackson? I mean, he's gotten those kind of letters before and they were bullshit then too. Evil says, why is Maxwell in a minimum security prison with those horrific crimes? I thought that was a no-go. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be. But she got moved to a minimum security prison after coming out and saying she never saw Donald Trump doing anything inappropriate. Makes you wonder what was going on. RJ says, historians will pick this time apart for centuries. Yeah, they're going to. It's going to be interesting in 10, 15 years to see the documentaries that come out about now. Jay says, got to pop out for now. Might rejoin later. Well, thanks for joining, Jay. Just a reminder, this will go up over on YouTube whenever I wrap it up. So if you want to catch whatever you missed, either before or after you were in here, it'll be up over there. The audio will also end up over on Spotify. You can find me on either one, Analytical Iowan, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Blue Sky. So, just trying to put my stuff out there wherever people can find it. I encourage you to follow not just me, but find your other creators that you like that talk politics, any of those other places where they have their content, because we never know what's going on. We don't know if TikTok's going to go away, if we're going to start getting community guidelines violations. I've noticed my views are way down compared to 2 months ago. My stuff's just not getting out there as far. I'm picking up far more subscribers over on YouTube than I have been on TikTok, which is troubling. So look for your creators on those other platforms, because we may eventually come to a point where we're not welcome on this app. So, yeah, just look for them wherever they've got their content out, just because you never know what might happen. Nigel says, thank you, I'm following. You've given me the most calmness that I've had in like 9 months. Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you for the follow. I appreciate everybody who follows. You know, and I do 3 to 5, sometimes up to 10 videos a day, although the 10 video days are less frequent. So, and I just try to look at some of the stories going on and do like I'm doing here. Try to break things down, look at what might be going on behind the scenes, and give kind of a calm, collected response to it. MJ says, has there been any coverage on Nikki Haley, or is she underground? She is completely underground. I haven't heard anything from Nikki Haley since the election. Evil says, how can we rebuild relationships when around the world once comb over Caligula is gone? Well, as Rebecca says, we just do. Joe Biden did a great job of doing that. You get a statesman in there who can talk to them, somebody with a diplomatic edge. But beyond that, we need to pass some things and put some structures in place to prevent another Donald Trump from becoming elected. And I've said before, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of constitutional amendments come out of this presidency after he's gone, to prevent things like people from him becoming president. Maybe a no felons amendment, and some other laws and things to reel in presidential power. And that would go a long way to rebuilding relations worldwide, to prevent us from ever electing somebody like him. I know he'll be term limited. But then just, putting the guardrails up, better guardrails, would give the rest of the world more faith in us. Because we need our allies. Liam says, I feel the world understands. Once the Repubs are out of power, they will gravitate back. Yeah, that'll be part of it too. They realize it is not all Americans. It is a section of Americans that wanted this dumb fuck in power and his party in power. And as I said over on the Rational Boomer podcast, I don't think they intended to win. Or well, they wanted to win. I don't think they thought they were going to win. I think they saw the same things we did, expected Kamala Harris to win, expected to lose the House and the Senate, and they were gearing up for a fight. And now that they're in power, they're shitting themselves going, fuck, now what do we do? We didn't expect to be here. I think the only person that expected to be where they are is Donald Trump. Rebecca says, they are here for us. They have reached out. Yeah. The rest of the world is going to be here to help us. When we need it. Evol says, I'm pleading with the rest of the world to understand most of us aren't MAGA. And I think they get that. I think they get that because there's a bunch of people like myself, like Mike, a bunch of liberal creators out here saying the same thing, dropping comments on videos. And there's more of us than there are of MAGA. Unfortunately, the Democrats dropped the ball in this past election, and they need to figure out where they fucked up. I've got some ideas on that, and they need to straighten it out going forward so that it doesn't happen again. Liam says there's going to be a giant sigh of relief from around the world. Yeah, when he's gone, there's going to be a when Donald Trump is gone. Whether that comes January 20th, 2029 when he's out of office and we all celebrate, or the Big Mac gets him, or some other event in between, the party atmosphere that is going to be going on worldwide is going to be phenomenal. I mean, I have a bottle of Jack Daniels that I bought, let me think, before 2005. And it is still sitting on a shelf, has yet to be opened. It is autographed by the great niece or the great niece of Jack Daniel himself when she was at a local grocery store signing autographs. And I may actually crack it open on the day he's gone. Haven't touched it in over 20 years. And I will at least consider cracking that open when he's finally gone. And I love Jack Daniels. Evil says, I've got a bottle of Johnny Walker Blue from when he's gone. Johnny Walker Blue. Oh. That's a lot more expensive than my little bottle of JD. I had Johnny Walker Red. Wasn't entirely a fan. But I'm guessing Blue is way better. Rebecca says, I will send you a bottle of JW Blue. Who are you talking to, Rebecca? Were you talking to me or Evil? Eagle says, the shelves of ABC will be empty. Oh yeah, there's going to be tons of liquor stores that are going to be empty. And MAGA is going to lose their minds. They will lose their absolute minds. Oh, Rebecca said me. Oh, okay. Well, I'd appreciate that, but you also don't have to do that. Johnny Walker Blue. That's a big bottle. Eagle says they are today. Oh, MAGA's losing their minds about something every single day. They're losing it today because he lost the Nobel Peace Prize. Not that he was ever a serious contender. The only person, again, who thought Donnie was a serious contender was Donnie. And even if his little plan to get a ceasefire out of Gaza to get him the Peace Prize would have worked, they made their decision, I think, months ago. This is for last year. Because it takes time to set the whole thing up and have people come in to get the award and all of that, right? They don't make the decision minutes before. But Donald Trump is too dumb to realize that. He doesn't care. He just wants what he wants. And he only wants the Peace Prize because Obama got it. Do Not Go Gently says he has done more harm to the world than good. Yeah, exactly. And like I said over on the Rational Boomer podcast, even if he got the ceasefire, how do they seriously give a man the Nobel Peace Prize when he stands up in front of a room full of his generals and admirals and says, well, maybe we should send you into liberal cities and you can use it as a training ground? How does that translate into a peaceful person? It doesn't. But again, Donald Trump, too stupid to realize it. Rebecca says, you think he is a literal joke to the rest of the world? He is. And by extension, we are for electing him. They know it's not all of us, and they know it's only a section of us. But they still think we're fucking stupid for electing him, and we are. Evil says he bragged about ending free speech. That ain't peaceful. Exactly. Now, what he was talking about was just preventing people from being able to burn the American flag. And the Supreme Court has always said that that is protected speech under the Constitution as a protest. And he wants to outlaw it because he thinks he's getting somewhere. He's just playing up to the same crowd because he gets it. He thinks he gets a cheap win, so they cheer him for doing something good. Then the headline comes out that he does it, and they think he's done this massive thing, and they don't care if it's illegal or not. They get the headline out of it, and that's the type of stuff when they say, "Oh, he's done more for the American people." That's what they mean. It's all this petty bullshit nonsense that judges are overturning at every turn. Do Not Go Gently says, attacking the fishing boats wasn't great. Yeah, that too. I think they're up to 4 now that they've sunk. And don't even know what he was talking about after that when he was referring to them as water drugs. I don't know. Donald Trump is delusional. And there are going to be certain members of the military, if they're still in when he is out of office, when he is out of office, there are going to be certain members of the military that could be facing charges under the UCMJ for following illegal orders. I mean, it's possible. I'm not guaranteeing that it would happen. I don't entirely know if bombing those fishing boats would fall under illegal orders or not, but it could happen. Evil says, what's my handle on YouTube? Can't lose this insight if TikTok goes away. Well, I've been going about little over an hour and a half here, so I was going to wrap up anyway. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, this will be up over on my YouTube page, Analytical Iowan at YouTube. There is a link tree in my bio. Will take you to my YouTube page, or just search Analytical Iowan on YouTube. All of my TikToks end up over there, getting much better about keeping them posted in a timely manner to when they go up on TikTok. So they're going to be behind a little bit, but they all get up over there. Same with my TikTok lives. This will be up over there after TikTok lets me get it downloaded, and I do all that fun stuff. All my TikToks also end up over on Blue Sky, and they end up over on Spotify as well. Now, Spotify is the one. It does take me longer to get them onto Spotify. I usually wait until I am done for the day. I have everything I'm going to record and post for that day, and I post them all up at one time. So sometimes I'm behind a little bit on YouTube, but usually they're up within a day of going up on TikTok. I'm also Analytical Iowan on Spotify and Blue Sky. So check me out those 3 places. Again, Analytical Iowan on YouTube, Analytical Iowan on Blue Sky, or Analytical Iowan on Spotify. I did get a notification that I might be able to start putting up video files on Spotify as well. And if I can figure out what I'm doing wrong and actually put up videos, my TikToks may be going up there as well. So I'm going to thank you all for joining me. It was a great live. This will be up over on YouTube later, and I will catch you the next time I go live.